Hi, this is Abigail Miller. I am back for part 2 of Child Abuse and Prevention Awareness Month. Wrapping into that, child abuse, sexual assault, all the different areas of abuse so that we can be more aware and be part of the solution versus being part of the problem. So I wanted to think about, why is abuse so prevalent in our world today? It's not just an American problem or a European problem. It's not a third world problem. It is rampant throughout all of our world. And I think one of the ideas that continues to make abuse an issue is that our society struggles to recognize the worth of all human beings. We see that in the issues of racism that have been flaring out again. We see that in the mass shootings and abuse of children and spouses and elders. We see that in pornography and human trafficking. Who would ever think that we would be dealing with these same issues today that we dealt with for years and years in the past? Even our laws today make it hard to find justice for the oppressed and the abused without the victim being re-victimized as they tell their story and as they seek to find justice. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Think about that. If a victim is brave enough to come forward, oftentimes if it's a case of rape or sexual assault, she hears things like, well, what was she wearing? Or she should have known better than to be there or to do that. And then there are the children who suffer in silence and nobody even hears their cries. Abuse is rampant. Rachel Denhollander, in her book, What is a Girl Worth?, talks about her journey and her struggle when she brought forward her testimony about Larry Nassar in the gymnastics sort of scandal that broke. And when she went to talk to the judge for the trial of Larry Nassar, she talked about how, and I quote her, "These children are worth everything the law can offer. Our laws should be there to protect the victims, not the abusers." And so many times in the instance of like Larry Nassar, this powerful doctor, his position protected him instead of protecting the victims. He was caught with over 37,000 pornographic images of young girls on his home computers. And when Rachel Denhollander talked about that, she said, "But I couldn't choose to ignore them. Someone had to bear witness to the evil. Looking away didn't change what was there. It only made it impossible to stop." Ugh, what a true statement. So many times in society we look away. We think, that's not my problem, or I don't know what to do about that. I'm just one person. I can't do anything. And then instead of stopping what is wrong, evil is actually empowered and it grows and it takes hold in a much stronger way than if that voice actually spoke up for good. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." And Martin Luther King Jr. says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And in a different section of his quote, it says, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." We need to speak up. We need to stand for what is right. We need, as my shirt says, to provide hope for those who are being abused. When will we say enough is enough? When will we be people who stand up for what is right? I want to read a slightly longer excerpt from Rachel Denhollander's book. This is talking about Coach Tom Brennan in the gymnastics issues with Dr. Larry Nassar. And she says, "There were bright spots too, like the day Coach Tom Brennan accompanied one of his athletes to the witness stand." This is speaking of the trials and court hearings. "And the world got to see what it looked like when an adult responded properly to allegations of abuse. I wanted to cry as I heard Tom explain that he had been a longtime friend of Larry's, a colleague even. Larry was his advisor after graduate school. When I came forward, Tom heard the reports and he listened. Even though he was Larry's friend and colleague, he went back to the athletes he was close to and asked them if they had been abused. When they denied it, Tom went a step further, asking the questions that had to be asked so survivors could verbalize and face what had been done to them. Had Larry done the procedure I described? Had he worn gloves? Did he get consent? And as the horrific reality dawned on Tom, he helped his gymnasts accept and face it too. He helped them report to the police, coming to court with them, standing behind them as they spoke, steely anger burning in his eyes. Tom had done what no other authority figure had done for more than 20 years. Believed and acted. What a powerful example of a man in leadership who heard the reports, chose to ignore his relationship with a person to see if the reports were real and take action. Can't we all be that for someone? Another quote from Martin Luther King Jr. that I wanted to sort of leave us with this thought on. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So what can we do? Maybe you feel like you're like me sometimes and you're like, okay, I'm just one person, one small voice. What can I do? First thing, talk about it. Be that person that is willing to talk about hard things. Be that person who is safe, who is reliable and trustworthy, so that others know that they are able to talk to you and that you are safe. Maybe you have a job where you have influence. Be willing to talk about it. Maybe you're just that everyday, ordinary, average person, kind of like we really all are. Mention it on Facebook. Mention it on your social connections and show that it's not something that you're afraid of dealing with, but you are aware that abuse happens and you would love to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Thanks for hanging out with me for these few minutes. I look forward to one more time about abuse and talking about it, hopefully from a little bit of a different perspective to reach out to those who have actually been abused. But thanks again for listening and thinking through some of these difficult issues with me. Thanks so much.